You saw the title and your brain immediately went, wait, what? And that's exactly the point. It pulled you in, it made you curious, and that's what happens in life. Something grabs your attention, but the truth is, the real transformation happens when you grab your own attention, when you decide to stop living on autopilot and actually show up. Now, let's get the obvious out of the way. This is not about anatomy. This is not about some poll in a magazine. This is about something far more powerful, and I'm going to use that word you saw in the title as a way for you to remember it for the rest of your life. Think of it as an acronym. PENIS stands for personal energy, inner strength. That's the thing that 97% of women find irresistible, and honestly, it's the same for men, too. It's not about the shape of your body, the clothes you wear, or the number on the scale. It's about how you carry yourself, the way you walk into a room and people feel something shift because you showed up with confidence, with presence, with purpose. You know that person who speaks and everyone leans in. That's not an accident. That's not luck. That's someone who owns their space. That's someone who's decided they belong. And here's the part most people miss. Your personal energy and inner strength aren't things you're born with in a fixed amount. They're built. They grow every time you do something that scares you. Every time you keep a promise to yourself. Every time you say no to something that drains you and yes to something that lights you up. The truth is, people are drawn to you when you're not trying to impress them but when you're standing fully in who you are. That's when you become magnetic. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Because you're present. Because you know yourself. So imagine for a moment that 97% number is real, that nearly everyone you meet is wired to respond to the best version of you. What does that version look like? It's the you who makes eye contact instead of looking at the floor. It's the you who speaks up in the meeting even when your voice shakes. It's the you who signs up for the class, starts the side business, applies for the promotion, sends the message, takes the trip, says, I love you, first. It's the you who stops overthinking every little thing and just takes the damn step. And here's the most exciting part, the second you start showing up like that, you're going to feel it inside yourself first. You're going to realize that this thing you thought you were chasing, the approval, the admiration, the attention, you actually give it to yourself when you live in alignment with who you want to be. That's why it's unforgettable. That's why it's magnetic. And that's why, no matter who you are or what you've been through, you can start building it today. You don't need permission. You don't need the perfect moment. You don't need anyone to choose you. All you need is to decide, right now, to choose yourself. And the moment you do, you'll understand exactly why 97% of women, and probably 100% of people worth having in your life, like this kind of penis the most. Because it's not about what you've got in your pants. It's about what you've got in your presence. And when you own that, everything changes. When something grabs your attention, it creates a split second of possibility, a window where your brain becomes receptive, alert, and ready to process new information. It's why certain words, images, or situations can stop you mid-scroll or mid-thought. Your brain is wired to notice the unexpected, the unusual, or the emotionally charged. This is a survival mechanism, an ancient part of you that's always scanning the world for things that could change your circumstances. The key here is understanding that attention is not just a passive thing that happens to you. It's a powerful trigger, and when you know how to use it intentionally, it becomes the doorway to transformation. Think about it. Every meaningful change you've ever made started with something that caught your attention. Maybe it was a conversation where someone said something you couldn't stop thinking about. Maybe it was the day you saw yourself in the mirror and realized you didn't feel like yourself anymore. Maybe it was a crisis that shook you awake. In each case, there was a moment that pulled you out of autopilot. That is the moment where possibility lives. But here's the thing, most people let that moment slip through their fingers. They get the spark, they feel the jolt, but then they immediately drift back into their old patterns because they never made the conscious decision to grab that moment and hold on to it. When you grab attention, especially your own attention, you interrupt the cycle of habitual thinking. It's like hitting the pause button on the constant noise in your head. Suddenly you're able to see choices you didn't see before. This is why attention is the first step toward any change, whether that's changing your mindset, your habits, your relationships, or your direction in life. Without that initial awareness, nothing shifts. You can't change what you're not even noticing. Grabbing attention can come from outside sources, something you read, hear, or see, but it can also come from an internal spark. Maybe you feel restless and you can't ignore it anymore. Maybe you've been tolerating something that suddenly feels unbearable. Maybe you've had an idea in the back of your mind for years and, in one instant, it stops being just an idea and starts feeling like a necessity. That's when the door is open, but the door doesn't stay open forever. If you don't step through it, it will close, and you'll find yourself back where you started. Attention alone is not transformation, but it is the threshold you must cross before transformation is even possible. Imagine you're walking through a crowded street and suddenly you hear your name being called. In that instant, the blur of everything else fades and your focus zeroes in. That's what attention does. It filters the noise and directs your energy to one thing. Now, if you just glance in the direction of the sound and keep walking, nothing changes. But if you stop, turn, and engage, the trajectory of your day, or your life, can shift. Owning your attention means not just waiting for those jolts to happen, but creating them intentionally. You can set up triggers for yourself, a note on the bathroom mirror, a reminder on your phone, a photo that stirs emotion, anything that forces your mind to pause and take notice. Because the more often you pull yourself into awareness, the more chances you have to step into something new. It's also important to understand that grabbing attention is not about adding more noise. We live in a world already overloaded with alerts, ads, and demands. The kind of attention that leads to transformation is focused, deliberate, and meaningful. It's not about being louder, it's about being more aligned. You can shout for someone's attention and still have no impact if what you're pointing them to doesn't resonate. The same is true for yourself. You can flood your mind with to-do lists and goals, but until you connect with something that truly matters to you, nothing sticks. The moment your attention is caught is like striking a match. There's heat, there's light, but there's also a limited window before it burns out. If you don't feed it, with action, with decision, with forward movement, it's gone. And once it's gone, you can't fake it. This is why the people who change their lives don't just notice opportunities, they act on them in real time. They understand that the gap between noticing and doing is where most dreams go to die. They close that gap by turning the spark of attention into the fuel for change. Attention is both the invitation and the challenge. The invitation is to see something differently, to see yourself differently. The challenge is to take that moment and convert it into movement. If you can do that, even in the smallest ways, you begin building the skill of transformation, and it is a skill, not a gift. It's built every time you interrupt your autopilot, every time you take control of where your focus goes, every time you choose to step through the open doorway before it closes. PENIS stands for personal energy, inner strength, and while the acronym is playful enough to make it unforgettable, what it represents is deeply serious and life-altering. Personal energy is the force you carry into every room, every conversation, every challenge. It's the invisible vibe that people feel before you even say a word. It's not about being loud or extroverted, it's about the quality of presence you bring. Some people carry an energy that lifts others, inspires action, and commands respect without demanding it. Others carry an energy that drains, overwhelms, or fades into the background. The difference lies in how much ownership they take over their own state of being. Inner strength is the other half of this equation. It's the quiet, unshakable core that keeps you grounded when everything around you feels unstable. It's what allows you to keep showing up when you're tired, to keep moving forward when you're scared, and to stay true to yourself when it would be easier to conform or please others. Inner strength is not something you display only when the world is watching. It's built in the moments no one sees, in the choices you make when it would be easy to compromise, in the discipline you practice when no one would notice if you let it slide. When you put personal energy and inner strength together, you become someone who naturally draws people in. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because people are instinctively drawn to authenticity, confidence, and conviction. The reason 97% of people find this irresistible is because it's rare. Most people are living in reaction mode, letting the moods, demands, and opinions of others dictate their energy. Most people only feel strong when the circumstances are easy. When they meet someone who has built their personal energy and inner strength to the point where it's not dependent on external validation or perfect conditions, they can't help but take notice. Your personal energy is shaped by what you feed your mind and body, the way you speak to yourself, the boundaries you set, and the commitments you honor. If you wake up and the first thing you do is scroll through other people's lives, you're outsourcing your energy. If you say yes to things you don't want to do just to avoid disappointing people, you're leaking your energy. If you let your inner critic speak louder than your inner coach, you're sabotaging your own momentum. Owning your personal energy means being intentional about the input you allow and the output you create. It means taking responsibility for the atmosphere you bring into a space rather than blaming the space for how you feel in it. Inner strength, on the other hand, is forged through resistance. You don't build strength by avoiding the hard things, you build it by moving through them. Every time you honor a promise to yourself, even when it's inconvenient, you stack a brick in the foundation of your self-trust. Every time you face fear and take action anyway, you reinforce the belief that you can handle uncertainty. Every time you refuse to shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone, you remind yourself that your worth is not up for negotiation. Inner strength isn't about never feeling doubt or fear, it's about not letting those feelings control your decisions. What makes this combination so magnetic is that it's not superficial. It's not about perfect posture, the right outfit, or clever words. It's about alignment between who you are on the inside and how you show up on the outside. People can sense when those two things match. They can also sense when they don't. Someone can smile, make all the right gestures, and still feel disconnected or fake because the energy doesn't match the expression. But when your personal energy is charged and your inner strength is steady, your presence feels congruent, trustworthy, and compelling. This is why you can meet someone who doesn't fit the traditional mold of attractiveness and yet they're magnetic, because they radiate that combination of energy and strength. They make you feel more awake, more alive, more confident just by being in their orbit. And the thing is, this isn't some genetic gift given to a lucky few. It's a skill set anyone can develop with intention and practice. It starts with noticing when your energy dips and asking what's draining it. It starts with paying attention to the moments you avoid discomfort and realizing those are opportunities to strengthen yourself. It starts with choosing to carry yourself in a way that matches the person you want to be, not just the person you've been so far. When you train both personal energy and inner strength, you stop waiting for circumstances to make you feel powerful. You create power from within. You stop chasing the validation of others because you're too busy living in alignment with your own values. And when that happens, you won't need to convince anyone of your worth. They'll feel it the moment you walk in. Presence and confidence outweigh appearance every single time because they are the qualities that determine how people experience you, far more than the surface-level details of how you look. You can meet someone who fits every conventional standard of beauty, but if they walk into a room looking unsure of themselves, avoiding eye contact, and speaking in a way that lacks conviction, the impression they leave will be far weaker than someone whose presence is undeniable. Presence is about being fully engaged in the moment, bringing your attention and focus to the people in the environment around you. It's the difference between being physically somewhere and actually being there. People feel it when you're present. They feel seen, heard, and valued, and that creates a connection that no amount of physical attractiveness can match. Confidence is not arrogance or pretending to have it all together. It's the quiet self-assurance that comes from knowing who you are and being okay with it, even when you're not perfect. It's the steadiness in your voice, the way you stand, the willingness to speak when you have something to say and to listen when it's time to hear others. Confidence is attractive because it signals safety and strength. It tells people that you can handle yourself, that you're not constantly seeking external approval to feel okay. In a world where so many are waiting to be told they're enough, confidence stands out as rare and refreshing. Appearance, on the other hand, is often the first thing people notice but rarely the thing that keeps their attention. You can impress someone visually for a moment, but sustaining their respect, trust, and interest requires more. Think about the people you remember most vividly in your life. Chances are, what makes them unforgettable isn't just what they looked like, it's the way they made you feel when you were with them. That feeling almost always comes from their presence and confidence. They showed up fully, they believed in themselves enough to stand tall, and that energy transferred to you. Presence has a grounding effect. When you are present, you're not distracted by your phone, your to-do list, or the thoughts running endlessly in your head. You're not worrying about what someone thinks of you while you're talking to them. You're not rehearsing your response while the other person is still speaking. Instead, you're there, fully there, and that's a rare gift in today's overstimulated world. People are drawn to those who make them feel like they matter, and the only way to do that consistently is to master presence. Confidence works hand in hand with presence because it allows you to stop hiding. When you're confident, you don't need to shrink your voice, soften your opinions, or filter your personality to be accepted. You can walk into a room without obsessively adjusting yourself to match what you think people want. Confidence gives you the freedom to focus on the moment instead of on your own insecurities. It allows you to approach opportunities without waiting for permission and to recover quickly from setbacks because your worth isn't tied to a single outcome. People often try to improve their appearance in hopes of gaining confidence, but it usually works the other way around. When you cultivate presence and confidence first, your appearance naturally becomes more appealing because people start to perceive you through the lens of the energy you project. Clothes, grooming, and style can enhance how you express yourself, but they cannot replace the substance of how you carry yourself. Someone who looks conventionally average but owns their space and engages deeply will consistently make a stronger impact than someone who looks flawless but seems disconnected or unsure. The influence of presence and confidence extends far beyond first impressions. These qualities shape how people respond to you in relationships, in work, and in social situations. They influence whether you're trusted with responsibility, whether your ideas are taken seriously, and whether people choose to invest their time and energy in you. They even affect how you perceive yourself. The more you practice showing up with presence and confidence, the more your self-image shifts to align with that identity. It becomes a cycle where your behavior reinforces your belief in yourself, and your belief in yourself strengthens your behavior. This is why people who truly embody presence and confidence seem to have a magnetic pull. They don't have to chase opportunities or approval, those things tend to come to them. Not because they are lucky or because life is easier for them, but because their energy signals that they are ready and capable. Others feel it, consciously or not, and respond to it. It's the subtle but powerful difference between walking into a room hoping to be accepted and walking into a room already knowing you belong there.